And now to talk about our module of the week, let's turn it over to Martin Anderson-Klutz, a senior solutions engineer at Acquia and maintainer of a number of Drupal modules of his own. Martin, what do you have for us this week?
Thanks, Nick. Have you ever wanted to truncate provided user text in a more intelligent way than the summary or trimmed formatter in Drupal core? There's a module for that. It's called Smart Trim, and it was originally created in April of 2012, so it's been around for quite a while. Has 7.x-1.6 and 2.1.0 versions available, the latter of which is compatible with Drupal 8, 9, and 10. It is actively maintained. It has 74 open issues, 8 of which are active bugs against the 2.x branch. It does have test coverage using the new GitLab CI, and it has a user guide for documentation. It's currently in use by 66,919 sites, according to Drupal.org. And its current maintainers are friends of the podcast, Marky, Ultimike, and Volkswagen Chick, the first of which is our co-host on the show today.
Yep.
Now, that's right. The module works by adding a variety of configuration options in addition to the trim length. So whether the length is in characters or words, it provides an optional suffix at the end of the trim point. So you can add, ellipsis or whatever works best for you. You can decide whether or not to add a more link after the trim text. You can optionally strip HTML tags from the trimmed output. And in the newest version, you have the ability to customize the output even more by overriding a Twig template. Now, because it works by providing a field formatter, it works with not only entities displays, but also with views, layout builder, and more. It's a module that I've used many times myself and found extremely useful. I haven't personally had a chance to try the latest release, but given the recent focus on UI improvements, documentation, and flexibility via the Twig template, it should be even better than I remember. So let's talk about Smart Trim.
Yeah, it's a module. It was created actually by Jay Senich when I was working at a company called New Signature way back in the day. But I just took it and contributed it to the Drupal community because it was so well used, or it just made sense because so many people were getting things trimmed and there was trimming in the middle of the HTML. So that was breaking everything. It was trimming halfway through the word. So that was making everything look ugly. The more link wasn't showing up, stuff like that. So we just kept adding features. It started in 6.x actually. And then we moved it to 7.x. We stopped supporting the 6.x branch. And then technically the 7.x branch is there and the 7.x version is there, but it's not really anything that we're working on. We're working on more towards the 2.1 version right now. We're trying to put more things into the Twig file. I've got a version or a branch locally that it's using the single directory component, which means it's only going to be supported for 10.1 and above. And then, that way we can get some of those configurations like how they want to add classes and stuff like that. You do that in the Twig file or in the component instead of this big long laundry list of configuration that you got to keep track of. So that's the future. Big thanks to Ultimike and James Shields, who's been doing a lot of really good work lately on that documentation. Amy June, Volkswagen Chick, has been killing it on the documentation and getting a lot of movement on it lately.
And just want to say thanks to James for being a longtime patron as well of the show. So nice to see him pop up here as well.
Yeah.
Question, just because I am vaguely familiar with the core trim functionality, right? The summary and trim functionality. What does core do out of the box, right? Does it just trims to a certain set of characters?
Character count.
Including HTML. Yeah,
yep.
Character count, including HTML.
Oh, so it's not even visible characters. It's like whatever the characters are in the blob that it gets. I got it.
Yeah. So the reason one of the reasons that came about is we were working on a site that had a URL. Everything. The first thing was a link, and then the URL was 100 characters. So we would say trim 100 characters, and it would break everything. Everything would be broken.
Right.
It was very annoying. So that's the one thing Smart Trim does is it counts. It can strip the HTML, but also it counts outside the HTML. So it removes the HTML, counts characters, says, okay, here it is, and then puts it back in if you want the HTML back in. So, and that's the big difference.
So it's faster to do
So-
that than just render it and count where it would get to that way. That's interesting.
Well, it might do that. I can't remember, to be honest with you, but it does it outside the HTML is the point. It doesn't count the HTML as part of its characters count.
Okay.
It's one of those scenarios where now in my head I'm like, well, why isn't Smart Trim part of Core? Why doesn't Core just do what Smart Trim is doing because it's better than what Core is doing natively?
I mean, that's fine. I'm perfectly fine. Maybe creating an issue on the trim format, summary trim formatter. One of the things that Smart Trim also does is if you actually, there are a lot of things like newspapers and stuff that want to write their own summary. They don't want to trim it. So if you write your own summary, you have the option of that's what's going to be shown no matter what, whether it's trimmed or not. So that's actually the first option. If there's a summary present, then keep it. Now, the problem with that is now Core automatically says, okay, well, there's a summary, which is the first paragraph of your body. So there's always going to be a summary. So you actually have to set to say, no, follow the trim settings instead.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. I guess I can understand that.
But that being said, why when it does trim, why does it count the HTML?
Well, right.
That's definitely one that they should work at.
So I've used summary before. Like, I think that's still valuable, but like, okay, so then like, let's summary and Smart Trim as opposed to just dumb. Well, that's not nice, but dumb trim.
Yeah.
Simple.
Just not average trim, not dumb trim, average trim.
Simple
smart.
trim.
It's not dumb.
Simple trim. Well,
yes, there we go.
I mean, come on, it's counting HTML, Nick. That's not simple. That's like annoying.
What were you going to say, Martin?
Anyway.
Well, so I think the maybe higher level question I wanted to just ask about Smart Trim, I feel like the use case that it's designed for is really sort of, you've got a content architecture where you're listing out, teasers or something like that. And it's probably been designed to show a certain number of characters, and, the way the core, body fields tend to work is there's that optional summary that we know, 99.99% of the time, editors just don't bother to fill out. And so to be able to show something, we need to truncate that down. I guess what I'm wondering is in 2023, with AI getting so much buzz, there are solutions that can either auto-generate or allow an editor to sort of manually generate and then validate. To some degree, does that lessen the need for something like Smart Trim to be able to sort of, achieve the same effect within content architectures?
Here's a prime use case that answers or at least answers your question from my standpoint, right? So I'm thinking about this from my own blog's perspective, right? And on my blog, Pocozy.com, if you want to check out the 5 or 6 posts that are there. Like, I create a post and then I use the summary field because I want a very specific set of text in my kind of like listing of blogs, right? So your approach, Martin, makes sense. I could hit a button, have the AI generate it, and then like just read it and like, yes, change a few things. But I still have to give that like effort and time, right? If Smart Trim were there and it wasn't going to just obliterate like what the trim aspects of that, I could say, hey, set Smart Trim to do it on a word count, and then say, hey, at the end, do 3 dots, ellipses, and then, do all this nice stuff that Smart Trim's doing out of the box. And then I don't have to think about it at all. It's just going to happen because I'm already writing that intro paragraph in the blog post, right?
I mean, the thing that you're missing, John, and then I'd like to hear what you think about this, Mark, but the thing that you're missing, John, is that Smart Trim is only going to take the first part of the paragraph. So if you're curating your teasers, then you already care about your content more than somebody, I think, just generally using trim anyway, because it's just using the first sentence quote or two.
Yep.
And in Martin's AI solution, solves that problem because it's going to read the whole article, then
I see.
summarize
So
it.
you guys are talking more about curated teasers as opposed to just like a snippet
Intro
or a preview of the article.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to that, like I said, the summary, if the summary is present, Smart Trim says, okay, it's a setting. One of the settings is, okay, summary's present. That means somebody thought about it. Leave it. That's what they want to have on there. That's what the AI generates. And so, yeah, does it take the need away? Yes. But if the summary isn't there, then what do you do? That's where the Smart Trim says, okay, well, then let me take over here. So,
well, I think it's helpful in both cases though, too, because you can, even if you provide a human or AI generated summary, they don't always pay attention to character counts anyway. So you can use Smart Trim on that to make sure they're not putting 400 words in there and breaking HTML.
Yeah, and that's an option as well, saying, okay, it's a summary, however, trim it to the character count as well. So,
yep. Awesome. Well, thank you, Martin. As usual, another great module of the week, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Nick.
see you, Mark.